I'm Judge Penny Wolfgang. The first name says it all, Jackie. Everyone knows who I'm referring to. The award-winning news anchor and community leader, Jacquie Walker. We'll sit down with her and husband Mike for a one-on-one you will see nowhere else, right here, right now on The Big Picture. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. Jacquie Walker is an Emmy Award-winning anchor and reporter who's been inducted into the New York State Broadcasters Hall of Fame, the Buffalo Broadcasters Hall of Fame, and recipient of a Silver Circle Award from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences for significant contributions to the industry and our community. Jacquie holds the unique distinction of being the longest tenured news anchor at one station, joining WBBZ News 40 years ago, a role she just recently stepped away from. And we are so honored to have her, Jacquie, right here in real life, joining us along with her husband, Michael, who we'll meet in the next segment. Welcome, friend. Welcome, Jacquie.
Thank you,
I was
Judge.
gulping when
Thank
I said 40 years, but I wanted to add that she started when she was a teenager.
Little tiny
Okay.
baby, little tiny baby. They brought me out and put me on the set, and there I was.
From kindergarten to the anchor.
Yes.
Well, actually, that's interesting because I think everybody would like to know. I know I would. Where were you born? Not when. Where were you born, and how did you get from where you were born to grow up and end up in Buffalo?
That is just an unbelievable question,
I know.
Judge, isn't it? I was born in Jackson, Michigan. Here's what you need to know about Jackson. Was one of the places that claims to be the birthplace of the Republican Party, was the home at one time of the largest maximum security prison in the world. Not any longer, but that was when I was growing up there. But at any rate, Jackson, Michigan is where I grew up. I went to Michigan State in East Lansing, Michigan. I graduated with a degree in advertising management. Not news, but advertising management. And I worked for a very large ad agency in Chicago, Leo Burnett USA.
Famous.
Yes.
The biggest.
For a few years until I realized I do not want to do this my whole life. I don't want to wake up in the morning and go in there. I don't. So I did the thing that I absolutely advise every young person now who's in college, don't do this thing that I did. And that is, I walked in one day and I quit. I didn't have a game plan. I didn't have another job. What was I thinking?
How brave.
How was I going to pay the rent? All those things. But I went through a period of self-examination then that I should have done during college or earlier. What did I want to do? What did I want to wake up in the morning and do? What was I good at? What did I feel like I had a calling for? And through that process, I thought about growing up. In my home, there was such a huge value placed on news and information. You know, when Walter Cronkite spoke, and of course I'm dating myself there, when Walter Cronkite spoke, everybody stopped and listened. When you were in the car with the radio on, when the news came on, you stopped and listened. Everybody had to be quiet. There was such a value and respect placed on news and information and those who delivered it.
Credibility.
Yes.
And like
yes.
you said, credibility. People believe them.
We
believe what they said.
And I wanted to be one of those people because I was interested in news and information, and I was a good writer. I was curious about the world. All those things that I should have thought about earlier. So I went back to school. I borrowed money from my father, which I did pay back. I went back to school in Chicago, and then entered the communications field. Took me a long time. It took me, time in school, and then took me trying to get a job, sending out little resume tapes to stations. I ended up in Springfield, Illinois, at a tiny station, which has since gone dark. It was Channel 55 in Springfield. I could tell you stories about that maybe later. But anyway, I went from Springfield to Rochester, New York, the NBC station there at the time, which is Channel 8 now. And then, while I was there, I met Bob Coop. Bob Coop, who was an anchorman here in Buffalo, and told me that there was going to be an anchor opening here. And within 3 weeks, I was working here in Buffalo. That was 40 years ago. So.
And the rest is history.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, that was a long answer, wasn't it?
When you know, it's interesting, like you said, you came from Rochester, blah, 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 blah. When you came here, did you think, oh, I'm going to be here, this is for the rest of my career, or this is just a stepping stone, I'm going to go to a bigger market, I'm going to end up in Chicago or New York or something like that?
Absolutely. That's what you did in these days in that business. But I met my future husband, whom everybody will meet here in a few minutes, while I was working in Rochester. I didn't want to get too far away from him, but I wanted to continue my career. And so the move from Rochester to Buffalo, which was a bigger market, seemed natural to me, and I did that. My goal ultimately was I wanted to work for the network, CBS. I wanted to work on the show 48 hours, the way they used to do that show, which was they would take one story, it isn't like it is now, but one story, and they'd assign reporters around that story to give you like 4 different views of that. You know, you could be the suspect, you could be the family that was harmed, you could be the police working on it. So you would cover one of those aspects. I wanted to be one of those reporters. That was my goal. But you know, life happens.
Yes.
And, you know, when Mike and I got married, we had children, and Buffalo is such a great place to have a family, as you know.
As I know, and we have Michael to thank.
Yes.
We'll talk to him later.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll talk to him later, and we'll thank him, you know. My Michael, too. That's how I ended up staying here, you know, because...
Is that right?
Yeah, because he was from Niagara Falls, and he was never going to leave.
Well,
So-
where did you meet?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
They'll get mad at me.
Come on, come on,
Now
Judge.
tell me, you have this Edward R. Murrow Award for Best Newscast. That was covering November 2022, the storm. An Emmy for a story called A Toxic Nightmare in Buffalo. And congratulations to you, and I know it takes a team. But what do you think was award-winning about those two stories as compared to anything else that's happened?
Well, you know, big events. Those are both big events. And the one about A Toxic Nightmare, I worked very closely with, actually, Rich Newberg was the lead on that. We did a whole hour, and Rich was the lead on all this. Tommy Vetter was the lead photographer. We had all worked together at Channel 4, but after that, we got together on this program, and it was culling the archives of news, film, and videotape that Channel 4, where I work, had of those big events. Love Canal was a huge event. It was an international event. And so, and Rich covered it at the time that it happened. So culling those archives, which we cannot let disintegrate on the shelves. Let me put in a plug for the Buffalo broadcasters who are trying to save those videotapes. They're disintegrating every day. It's expensive to try to digitize
And time-consuming.
and preserve those images of what happened back then.
Yes.
But that's the only way we're going to keep them. So anyway, the story that we did was, we did an hour program looking at a lot of different Buffalo events, and the Love Canal was one of them. Of course, as I say, Rich was a reporter on that. So that was why it won, rightly, it won an Emmy for all of us, everybody working on it, because it was really a wonderful program.
I can't let the time run out before I ask you to tell us the Oprah story, because I think it's one of the funniest things I ever heard.
Well, I was flown to Chicago to interview Oprah. I mean, what a a plum thing that happened. Her show, this is back in, I want to say 1996 maybe, was coming to Channel 4. And it was going to be the lead into our newscast. So I was sent there to interview her right before her show premiered on Channel 4. You'll recall it used to be on Channel 7, but then it came over to Channel 4 back in those days. And I met her, and she was just as you see her on TV. I mean, people always ask what's she really like. Very personable, very friendly, very approachable, just like the conversation you and I are having. And I sat through a taping of one of her talk shows before the interview. I was allowed just a few minutes with her after that show was over. And she asked me what I thought of the show. And I said, I thought it started out a little slow.
A little slow.
I said, but it got better toward the end.
You were
and she was like,
brave.
oh my gosh, I can't believe you thought it was slow.
I can't believe you did either.
Yeah. But we had a great interview. She ended up grabbing my hand and shaking me
Oh, really?
and everything else. And she said, Jackie, look at us. Look at what's become of us here. So it was really a fun interview. And believe me, they don't all go that way.
No, you know,
but it was
you
fun.
met so many, besides the Oprah story, who stands out of your mind as the most memorable like celebrity or ordinary person that you've
Well,
met?
I was lucky, and I did a whole piece on this on celebrities that I've interviewed because I have been lucky over the course of these 40 years. You meet a lot of people, but Oprah really stands out, I think, as my favorite. David Letterman, another favorite, because I was a fan of his show. He's an acquired taste, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
But I watched him.
I'd be afraid of him.
No,
I'd be
yeah,
afraid.
no. But he was fine. He watches you and takes his cues from you. So I played it straight with him, and we had a good conversation. That went well. The other one that I think is notable, people would notice, was Paul Newman. And back in the day.
Oh, those eyes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he was 62 years old at the time I interviewed him. I was much younger, but 62 years old. Those
And
eyes.
he still had it.
Oh, baby. Yeah, he
still
was
had it.
great. He
Okay.
was.
Now, you're stepping down from the anchor desk, but I just want to ask you quickly what I know you said you're going to have special projects and you're still going to be on TV in some capacity.
Yes. And nobody has ever done this before. I'm really realizing that this role has never been filled before. So I'm working to fill it right now. For instance, I went to the Allentown Art Festival yesterday and met a delightful artist who it was her first time showing at the Allentown, 61 years old, her first time showing, and she loved it because people loved her work. And so I ended up interviewing her. I actually borrowed a piece of paper and a pencil from her so that I could write things down. I thought she was so interesting. I wrote a story for the WIBB.com, our website. So I wrote that up. We took pictures, my husband and I took pictures and posted that. So I'll be doing that kind of thing, but I will be doing other interviews with newsmakers. I will be working with some of the younger people in the building to, give them a little critique. So there's a whole host of things that I can do and that I think I have the experience to do. I just have to carve out that role.
And they will be so fortunate for you to share your experience and teach some of the things that you've learned in your career to the younger generation coming up. It's really admirable that you can do that, Jackie. When we come back, we'll meet Jackie's husband, Mike, and much more of the big picture. We'll be right back.